Hi and welcome back, if you viewed any of my previous videos. My name is Tim Speece and I'm serving as a guide to help people find the greatest purpose of life, which is to help other people find the one who is life, and to follow him together, which will lead to groups of people living as the Creator intends, by true love, and thus exhibiting peace and harmony among them. We have been through quite a thoughtful journey in these two video series. We have examined basic questions that all people ought to ask in the lives we have been given. Questions like, why do I exist? What is the purpose of my life? How am I supposed to live? What am I supposed to do with my life? Who designed humans and who created me? Then we moved on to try and find that designer's will for people's lives. We found that Joshua, or Jesus of Nazareth, has the best qualifications for his claims that he alone is the messenger of the designer and creator of the human race. Finally, we looked at the most important teachings of the light of the world, and that teaching is love, that God the Creator wants us to love one another. We learned that most people don't know what love means as defined by the one who created it, our Heavenly Father, nor do they live by true love. The love that the Creator gave is perhaps the most important aspect to our existence. It is the primary aspect to human experience that makes life that we were given worth living. At the heart of love is selfless behavior motivated by compassion for others. What does that mean? It means we act to help others, not help ourselves. It means we put others' well-beings above our own. It means we actually care about the person in front of us more than we care about ourselves. It means we treat others the way we want to be treated. Love draws people together and causes us to share our lives together and care for one another. Please allow me to repeat that, which is what true love is. At the heart of love is selfless behavior motivated by compassion for others. And what does that mean? It means that we act to help others, not help ourselves. It means we put others' well-being above ours. It means we actually care about the person in front of us more than we care about ourselves. It means that we treat others the way we want to be treated. Love draws people together and causes us to share our lives together and to care for one another. We saw last time that God's messenger asked that people love each other and live by truth and love, and that very few people are doing that. In fact, one can see that those who call themselves God's people, whether Christian or Jew or Muslim or some other religion, all live essentially the same kind of life. A life of seeking material security and sadly ruled by self-pride and fear and selfishness, not lives characterized by true love. In other words, the only difference between the average religious person and the average atheist is some vocabulary words and some God rituals. We saw that many religious people, especially Christians or Biblians, are very much set against people living out love the way that Joshua defines that. The religious people use their favorite fear words like cult or communists or heretics or other such silly fear-fostering labels to condemn people who are actually trying to live a daily life of love for others. To the Christian Biblian, any group of people who are living together in a life of sharing and love is something to be feared and condemned, something weird or abnormal or unnatural. Sadly, by these words, they only reveal the destiny they are setting for themselves. Which brings us to our concluding video for this series and its topic of our chosen destiny. Every person knows that there are consequences to one's actions. If I wrongly harm another person, wrongly meaning my action was motivated by self-pride or fear or selfishness, then I deserve to be punished for that action. People all over the earth in every culture for recorded history have understood that doing wrong deserves justice be done to the guilty person. For example, if a person freely stole from others and the group of people that they were a part of did nothing to discourage, dissuade, or correct such actions, then more people would also steal and harmful chaos would ensue. To deny this is to have a wrong understanding of human nature. It is fundamental to the human conscience, the knowing that doing wrong deserves a negative consequence. A conscience, the ability to know moral right from wrong, is one of the things that set us apart from the animals and is an integral part of human nature and part of the human experience the Creator provided. Our conscience is the basic operating system, so to speak, and was designed to guide us away from wrong behavior. It is the moral knowing that our souls recognize and can identify. So the question must be asked, what consequences does a person experience by living a life characterized by words and actions reflecting self-pride and fear and selfishness? That is, a life with very little true love, versus a person living a life characterized by words and actions reflecting true love. The simple truth is that we were given this life to do with what we please, like any gift or privilege we are given. We have a basic choice to make. Will we live in the pursuit of truth and rightness and love, or will we not? We are headed in one direction or the other. Yeah, there are degrees to most things regarding human efforts, but there is one thing that is not a matter of degree, and it is the direction we choose to head in with our lives. We are either on a path of true love and significant change and growth as a human being, or we are not. Those who hear the basic claims and truths of the light of the world will set their direction in life. If I hear of the person of Joshua of Nazareth and I hear his basic teachings, who he was and what he wants of people, and I choose to ignore him and live my life my way, then I have set my direction in life. I have chosen to remain a proud, fearful, selfish human being and thus part of the problem. I might do some good along the way in this life in spite of rejecting the light, but by rejecting him, I have allowed my self-pride to set my life direction. I have rejected help from the one person who can help me the most and make me all I was meant to be, the one best suited to enable the significant change and growth I so desperately need as a human being. I have rejected the best leader possible and his life characterized by love. By rejecting him and his teachings, I have set a consequence. That is, I will be judged by the perfect one standard in order to experience just consequences once I leave my body. The standard that was given to mankind and made available to all in the light's words as preserved in the 4 gospel books. Please allow me to repeat that. By rejecting him and his teachings, I have set a consequence. That is, I will be judged by the perfect one standard in order to experience just consequences once I leave my body. The standard that was given to mankind and made available to all in the light's words as preserved in those 4 gospel books. Let us be clear what we were talking about here. We are not talking about the Christian concept of hell. The concept of hell as everlasting torment is an unjust, fear-generating, people-controlling belief that has no sound basis in Joshua's teachings. The concept of hell has God sending people to a place of eternal torment or torture. This is false. While Joshua does speak of a place called Gehenna, translated as hell, he is talking about a place of burning destruction that lasts forever, not a person's soul lasting forever in that place. Please let me repeat that. While Joshua does speak of a place called Gehenna, translated as hell, he is talking about a place of burning destruction that lasts forever, not a person's soul lasting forever in that place. Here are some additional concepts that have an important bearing on this topic. The definition for responsible is having the job or duty of dealing with or taking care of someone or something. The definition of accountable is a person being required to be responsible for something or being held to account for executing some responsibility. Both concepts are very important regarding human behavior. Every person has some level of responsibility for something. The more mature or experienced and the better able to understand we are, the more responsible we become for any given task. The same is true regarding authority. That is, the more authority we are given over people, the more responsible we become for their right treatment, as well as for their performance for some task or for their well-being. Accountability flows from responsibility. If I am responsible for some task or some person or persons, then I am obligated to follow through and meet that responsibility. If I do not, then I ought to be held accountable for that failure. Justice would require an appropriate consequence. For example, if I'm an 18-year-old person who was given the responsibility to watch my little sister while my parents were away for a few hours, and I don't do well, that is, I behave irresponsibly or selfishly, and the child gets hurt, I ought to experience accountability for failing my responsibility. If I don't experience a just consequence, what do you think the 18-year-old's going to learn from that? To be responsible the next time they're given a responsibility? Sadly, it seems most American parents do not have a proper understanding of accountability at this time. Just look around at the state of young people in the United States. Important character traits like being mature, responsible, disciplined, self-controlled, selfless are sadly not terms which describe the average character of the majority of young people in the United States at this time. Does the viewer deny that these things are true? Should people not be responsible and held accountable? For example, if a child lies to their parent in order to avoid the fulfilling of a responsibility, then should not there be a consequence for that child's choice? Or, at a larger level, if the people of a nation purposely launch a missile at the people of another nation, and that launch was not justified, then should there not be a consequence? Don't people need to be responsible and not harm other people wrongly? And if they do, should they not be held accountable? If there are no consequences for behaving harmfully, what do you think will be the result? For example, is not a jail cell an appropriate consequence for a person who insists on harming other people? These are very simple questions to answer, dear viewer, but only if your conscience has not been destroyed or damaged by false beliefs that you might hold. Why, dear viewer, would you think that these things, good and right and natural concepts and consequences, would not apply at the level of life itself? In other words, if I live a good life as defined by the maker of good, should I not experience appropriate consequences? And likewise, if I live a bad life, should I not experience just consequences? For example, would it be right for Hitler or Pol Pot or Genghis Khan or a number of other exceptionally grievous characters in history to experience the same consequences for their life behavior as a person who lived to help other people? Of course it would not. So, dear reader, why would you think that you and I should be exempt from such a judgment? Degrees merely assist in illustrating or clarifying a point or concept. So just because we did not do the degree of evil that Hitler did, does not mean that we will not be subject to judgment of our life, or that our judgment will be favorable because we did not commit the same level of evil he did. Perhaps you have created your own standard, and your standard will always have you coming out as a good person. Perhaps you are deceived and deluded in the standard you've created for yourself. The one who defeated death to prove what he taught was true says, quote, "A time is coming in which all who are in the tombs will hear my voice and will come forth. Those who did the good deeds to a resurrection of life, and those who committed the evil deeds to a resurrection of judgment." Unquote. He says the same thing several times in the four Gospels. For example, at the great judgment described in Matthew 25, he says first to those who lived by doing what was right, quote, "Then the king will say to those on his right, 'Come, you who are blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world.'" Unquote. And then to those who lived according to their selfishness, he will say, quote, "Then he will also say to those on his left, 'Depart from me, accursed ones, into the eternal fire which has been prepared for the devil and his angels.'" Unquote. Please note two things: that first, the fire is eternal, not the punishment, and secondly, that this place was created for the devil and his angels, not for humans. The simple contrast and concept could not be clearer, nor could it be less perfectly aligned with the concepts of rightness, justice, and appropriate or fair consequences. One of the great delusions that people exist in is some version of the thought that I am a good person, or everyone is going to heaven, and everyone's pretty much good. The trap of self-pride and fear and selfishness causes most people to say, I am a good person. The truth is that Hitler and many other evil people would say the same thing. Hitler, for example, would justify his evil and say he was a good person, that here are all the reasons why I did this stuff. I'm justified. If a person who perpetrated such evil could justify himself, why do you think people who do lesser evil would not also justify themselves? For that matter, dear viewer, why do you think you would not justify yourself against your own wrong, self-created standard that you'd picked up from false religion or some other source? It comes back to the standard against which we evaluate ourselves to determine whether we deserve reward or punishment, whether we deserve life or death. The same one who said, quote, "For not even the Father judges anyone, but has given all judgment to the Son, so that all will honor the Son even as they honor the Father," unquote, also said, quote, "If anyone hears my sayings and does not keep them, I do not judge him. For I did not come to judge the world, the people of the earth, but to save them. He who rejects me and does not receive my sayings has one who judges him. The word I spoke is what will judge him at the last day." That's the standard, dear viewer. "For I did not speak on my own initiative, but the Father himself who sent me has given me a commandment as to what to say and what to speak," unquote. So Joshua says plainly there, the Father is the creator, his Father is the creator of human beings, and that the word that Joshua spoke and was recorded in those 4 gospel books is the standard against which people will be judged. This is a great, in a nutshell, explanation by the light of the world of how our judgment will work. First, Joshua of Nazareth will be all people's judge. He is the life judge for each individual who ever lived. He will evaluate all of our life with us and will not allow any deception or falsehood in that evaluation. In this author's opinion, there will be a replaying of all our significant words, decisions, actions, and behavior of our life. And along with that visual display, there will also be another display that will show our thoughts and motivations and intent for each and every word spoken, decision made, and action taken. And then the light says this very important thing in this context, quote, "For I did not come to judge the world, but to save the world," or the people of the earth. "He who rejects me and does not receive my sayings has one who judges him. The word I spoke is what will judge him at the last day," unquote. What word, you might ask? Well, how about love one another? The simple truth is that Joshua's words and teachings and truths regarding how people ought to live is what we will be judged by at the last day. Joshua did not come to condemn, but to save people from the darkness of a life not characterized, by truth and love. At that judgment, the role of the judge is simply to review his previously spoken truths, as those words recorded in those 4 gospel books, and to demonstrate how our choices either complied with his words or not, and why. The judge is not sending anyone anywhere. We have already sent ourselves to our post-death destiny by virtue of our choices in this life. We will not be accountable for what we could not understand, but we will be accountable for purposely avoiding that which we did not want to hear. I hope you understand that, dear viewer. Just because you turn away from the teachings of Joshua, you purposely try not to hear him, you don't pick up his words, is not going to be an excuse, not going to be valid. Here is the contrast once again between the Christian or Biblian view and that taught by the light of the world. The Christian God sends people to hell, a place of eternal torment, on the basis of their success or failure of keeping moral rules derived from some part of the Bible or their religious traditions or other sources. Essentially a "you shall not" rule set that a person will be judged by. In contrast, the true Creator revealed by the light doesn't send anyone to eternal life, nor does he send a person to just consequences and destruction. Rather, we send ourselves there. He leaves our destiny up to us. The choice of entering into life can be made at any point in time after we become adults. If we choose life, we will live by truth and love and work at changing ourselves into better human beings and then work to help others. That will be how we will live our lives. If we choose to remain in darkness and refuse the light, we will remain stagnant or degrade on the road of lostness and darkness, justifying our selfish little lives, pursuing our little money and material things. So, dear viewer, you have heard important truths in this video series, and we have concluded with the obvious choice that every human being has. Our choice, your choice, is no different in terms of the nature of the choice than the young woman who chooses death and darkness by strapping explosives to her body with the intent of killing other people for religious reasons. Your choice is not as dramatic, but it is just as real nonetheless. If you have heard the claims of the person who defeated death in an authentic, genuine way, some 2,000 years ago, to prove that what he said and did was true, then you have made a decision. The simple truth is that the vast majority choose to reject him and thus choose death. They do this due in large part to the problem of unbelief or no faith. They simply believe the irrational delusion that there is no designer of human beings, or they make up a Jesus to fit their little lifestyles. As we have reviewed earlier, most do not say or think to themselves, "Oh, I reject Jesus of Nazareth." Rather, they find much more clever ways to reject him and thus deceive and delude themselves. They will say things like, "Oh, he was a great man," or "a great religious leader," or "he was a great moral teacher," blah, blah, blah. Or they will simply ignore him and read thousands of hours of entertainment books and content without even a thought to ever seriously picking up the 4 gospel books and reading the words of Joshua of Nazareth for themselves. They perhaps, you say, use these things to avoid making this very simple statement of faith, which would be, Jesus of Nazareth is who he says he is, the Son of God, the unique and sole messenger to mankind and the judge to every person. He is eternal life, and he is my master, the only one I look to understand myself, the life I was given, and how to live my life with others. So, dear viewer, how many people make that simple confession? Very, very few. All kinds of silly religious things are substituted in the place of that simple and sincere confession and subsequent living of one's life. What about you, dear viewer? The choice is and always has been simple. Choose life or choose death. The one who loves you more than anyone else does gives you the freedom to choose, and he hopes you choose life. Thank you for listening to this message. This is the end of video series 2. We will be producing a video series 3, which will focus on the primary falsehoods that the great counterfeit of Christianity offers in place of true love and real life. Until next time, be real. Get past the shallowness and pretentiousness of typical American life, especially religious life, which is meeting Anity a few times a week, and seek deeper to find what you truly need.